Greg, can you shut the chime off? Or no?
I'm not sure. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our first installment in our panel series entitled Beyond the Game, Men of Color Athletes. I'm Greg Bernard, class of 2004, and Director of Alumni Relations. First and foremost, thank you all for joining us today. We truly appreciate it. We also want to thank the Alumni Association for their support and sponsorship of this event, as well as the athletics department. I also want to give a shout out to my colleague, Doreen Camrata-Gilhuli, Associate Director of Alumni Relations, for helping manage things behind the scenes. Now, before we begin, I do want to go over a few guidelines. In order to avoid any potential audio or visual issues or interruptions to the program, all participants have been muted upon entry, and we ask that you remain muted throughout the conversation, both audio and video. Although we've done this manually, we will now give everyone a moment to ensure that both your audio and video are muted before we proceed. Thank you. Secondly, in order to optimize your viewing experience of the program, we recommend you change your view to speaker view as opposed to gallery view, as this will highlight the individual who is speaking at the time. If you're participating on a mobile phone, simply click on the screen, navigate to the three dots, click settings, and then turn gallery view off. This will enable speaker view. And last, in order to ask questions, we ask that you use the chat feature to communicate, which will be monitored throughout the program and questions shared during the Q&A segment. Now, to provide a little background, the idea for this series began about 6 years ago when I met Dr. Cooper while I was Director of Alumni Relations at UConn. We both share a deep passion for athletics, mentorship, and the research surrounding the social, emotional, and psychological effects on identity at the intersection of sports and education. Now, although we both moved on from UConn, we've kept in touch and discussed putting something together after the release of his most recent book. Now, as a Southern alumnus and the director, I've had the pleasure of crossing paths with a number of dynamic athletes during my time, many of whom have gone on to do amazing things in their personal and professional lives that transcend sports. Some are close friends, and others I've had connected with through our shared work in the field of mentoring and leadership development. This topic always comes up in one form or another, and it was time to shed a little light in an intentional way. Southern, as with many institutions across the country, is struggling with retention of our male students of color. A specific subset of this demographic is athletes. These young men face a whole series of obstacles, challenges, and pressures that a prototypical student does not during this critical time in their lives. And this series of discussions will unpack the various challenges they face, providing tools and resources to shepherd change. I'll now take a moment to introduce our moderator, Dr. Cooper, who will then introduce our panelists. Dr. Cooper is a Dr. J. Keith Motley Endowed Chair of Sport Life, Sport Leadership and Administration, Special Assistant to the Chancellor for Black Life, and an Associate Professor in the College of Education and Human Development at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. He earned his bachelor's degrees in Sociology and Recreation Administration from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. He also earned his master's degree in Sport Administration from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And lastly, his doctorate in kinesiology with a concentration in sport management and policy from the University of Georgia. His research agenda focuses on the intersection between sport, education, race, and culture, with an emphasis on sport involvement as a catalyst for holistic development. He is the author of From Exploitation Back to Empowerment, Black Male Holistic Underdevelopment Through Sport and Miseducation, which was published in 2019, and his most recent publication in 2021, A Legacy of African American Resistance and Activism Through Sport. Without further ado, it is my pleasure and honor I give you Dr. Joseph Cooper.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Office of Alumni Relations, SCSU. Very excited to be here with you all this evening. And I will be unmuting my video here momentarily. There we go. Now we're all set. Good evening, everyone. We're very excited to present to you our outstanding program for this evening, Beyond the Game, Men of Color. We have an illustrious panel of outstanding men who've demonstrated holistic development and excellence on and off the court and the field. I will now introduce our panelists. First, Mr. Darren Davis. For over 20 plus years, Darren Davis has had success in the sports world, especially football. You may know him as the former running back of SCSU, but Darren Davis can also be credited with working in education. He's an entrepreneur and a head coach of Newark Collegiate Academy high school football team. Darren Davis has been honored with the Kids Focus Award from the Knowledge is Power program, also known as KIPP, New Jersey, for his support of students as a coach, as a mentor, and as a leader. Darren is relocated to Maryland as he continues to work in education and currently teaches financial literacy for young middle school scholars. Mr. Darren Davis. Next up, we have Mr. Barry Woods. Mr. Woods has over 17 years of experience in youth development, developing youth programs, engagement strategies, and relationship building, working with Stanford Public Schools, Stanford Boys and Girls Club, and the Allen Houston Foundation. Mr. Woods attended SCSU, where he was a member of the 1996-1997 Men's Elite Eight Championship team, and he earned his bachelor's degree and later earned his master's degree in human services from Walden University. Barry learned how to become successful through his faith, self-motivation, life-changing personal experiences, support of his AAU coach, Mr. Marshall, who was a mentor and a father figure to him, and his family. These life experiences helped Mr. Woods develop his unique style of mentoring and outreach that has proven to be very effective in building unique relationships with young people. Barry is also an author whose experiences inspired his first book, Reasons Why Youth Don't Give a Damn Anymore, almost 1 year ago. He is the winner of the 2013 Passion Award, 2019 Maytag Dependable Leadership Award, and the 2020 Community Leadership Award for the Stanford Boys and Girls Club. Barry is originally from New Jersey, but resides in Connecticut with his wife, Patricia, daughter, Alexis, and the baby boy is on the way. Mr. Barry Woods. Next up, we have Dr. Aaron D. Johnson, SCSU men's basketball's greatest defensive player ever. Aaron graduated as the program's all-time leader in block shots in a season for their career, and the last Owl to record a triple-double with 10 points, 11 rebounds, and 10 blocks. Aaron taught global studies, African-American studies, and criminal justice at Bay Shore Senior High School on the South Shore of Long Island, New York. For the past 15 years, he developed the African-American Studies curriculum course offered as an elective to sophomores, juniors, and seniors focusing on African Americans and American society from the slavery era to the present. I say taught because Dr. Johnson recently accepted a position as an assistant principal a few months ago. Dr. Johnson is an award-winning educator, speaker, and mentor who's been recognized for his dedication to equity, social justice, activism, child advocacy, and of course, education. The books are on the way. Dr. Aaron D. Johnson. All right, gentlemen, let's get into it. You have a great crowd here to hear your wonderful insights. We're going to start off in the beginning with taking a trip down memory lane. I want to start off with you, Aaron, Dr. Johnson. We know you are now 6'7". You stand very tall, the tallest tree. And we know that you weren't always in the physical stature that you are now. So tell us a little bit about your upbringing and how it led you to where you are in your today.
I had to wait to be unmuted, sorry. And I couldn't say anything because I couldn't unmute myself. But so I'm, you know, my story is it's meandering. It's like a movie. I've had a lot of ups and downs in life. As a matter of fact, some people who are on here probably remember me as Aaron Davis, and they're probably looking at me like, ooh, I know him, but I don't know that Johnson name. So I was adopted. I was adopted in 1987. And I never changed my name on really anything until I was about to graduate. I was like, I don't want that guy's name on any of my degrees. So that's me. I was Aaron Davis there, but I consider myself the fortunate foster kid. You know, I was fortunate enough to be adopted by a woman named Earlene Johnson. That's where my name comes from. The last name comes from, and who really kind of instilled a lot of values in me that stick with me today. That kind of service me every day. I quote her every day. She passed before my sophomore year at Southern Connecticut. And so it was a trying time there. But before then, I was just a kid. You know, I didn't play sports. I was always big, and I was always expected to play sports. By ninth grade, I was 6'4", about 200 pounds. And everybody was like, "You're playing ball, right?" And I'm like, "No." Like, I would say, yeah. I told my coach yes. And then he went behind, and I snuck out of the back door during tryouts. You know, I was like, I really don't want to play ball. My sister played ball. My brother played ball. I'm like, I'm not playing. They ran track. They had 8-packs. You know, they were like I was just a chunky kind of like big kid. And I was like, I'm not doing any of that. And so I snuck out of the back door. And then the next year he asked my mother behind my back, and I had no idea until later on in life. She asked me one day, she's like, "Aaron, would you consider playing ball?" I'm just like, no. Like, she's like, "Okay, so I think you should try it out." And when she said that, that means you're gonna play. So that was like my little nudge into basketball. And then from there, I just got pretty good pretty fast because I did everything was fundamentally sound. I didn't learn a lot of bad habits because I didn't play PAL and all that other stuff. And then I started playing AAU, and then I started getting contacted by people. So everything kind of went on it was like a downhill, you know, really, really fast and building momentum. And a neighbor of mine that I grew up with, Jared Lewis, who was one of the greatest basketball players to come out of Southern Connecticut. He's a record holder in other categories as well. He was he lived right around the corner. We grew up together, and he was like, "You should consider going to Southern." And I thought about it, and he was like, "Look, I know you want to be a teacher. It used to be a teacher's college." And, you know, he kind of sold it. So I came on to Southern, and Greg was Greg was the first person that I met when I got on campus. The following day, I moved in that night, and then the next day I met Greg at our freshman orientation. I was 17 years old, and so it's weird that we've been friends ever since. It's been 23 years. Here it is, going on year 24. And we got to know each other, and his character is kind of what connected me to, made sure that I stayed connected to Southern Connecticut, because I've had some experiences that I really wanted to kind of remove myself. Just like, you know, I graduated, give me that big old receipt that we call a degree, and I'll keep it moving, you know. So Greg kind of kept me tied here. So I'll fall back on that. You know, you'll learn a little bit more about me as we go on in our conversation, but that's what it is.
All right. Next up, Darren. Tell us a little bit about your family dynamic and a little bit about the moment that you fell in love with football.
Yeah, so I mean, everyone that knows me knows that my family, the family dynamic is near and dear to my heart, and that's where most of my love has come from. And so, mom and dad raised 3 boys, right? And two of them are on here tonight. They're alumni as well, Devin and Devon. All right, and mom and dad was divorced when I was 5 years old, right? But despite whatever issues they had, they did an excellent job co-parenting and raising 3 excellent young men. And so shout out to them because, right, we wouldn't be in this particular point without them. And so I definitely appreciate them. And just overall support and love. Like no matter what we did as like individuals, whether we're sports or not sports, they always found their way there. And that was our whole family as well, as far as aunts, uncles, cousins, grandma, grandfathers, they were always there. Okay. As far as like even traveling, if I played across the country, my family would find a way to get there. All right. My dad would drive, if we had away games, my dad would drive 4 hours. If we had a 4-hour away game, he would drive there and he would be there. And so I definitely appreciate all of them for that. Falling in love with the game, I can remember at a young age, my dad sit me on the couch in front of the TV, and he was a big Raiders fan. And so all of us in the family are Raiders fans, and we used to watch those games, and all I can remember is Bo Jackson and Marcus Allen. And that stuck out to me the most. And from there is where my initial love started. But I remember even playing in the playgrounds with friends, and we used to play this game called Free for All. So I don't know if the young kids still play that today. Well, it was every man for themselves, and we used to throw that ball up, and that's where you made your moves, or you were very aggressive in that space, right? And you were able to show your speed. And so from that point on, playing with different family members and friends, the love for football even grew even more. And then the confidence for it as well, too. And I remember trying out for Pop Warner at the age of 9. The first time I tried out, I didn't make the team. And I went to my dad and I told him the next year, I promise you I'm gonna make that team. And that next year I made the team. And that, after playing for a while, grew my interest. I continued to fall in love with the sport. And this is where we are today.
Thank you. Thank you. Barry, you've got a very powerful story. I would like for you to tell it better than I can in the question. But your upbringing was filled with quite a bit of adversity, in the family home as well as in school. How did you manage to overcome everything that you went through and become a Division I college athlete?
Well, a lot of things that transpired within my life. With my father leaving at an early age, and then my older brother, going to jail during the time in which I was going through a lot of trials and tribulations myself, going through high school, and almost was practically expelled from high school. A lot of things for me was looked at as a way out. And what really helped a lot, and to this day I'm very thankful, because my mother was a very great role model in the sense of, and I talk about this type of role model in my book as well, and in the sense of that she never played like the angry mom role, you know what I'm saying, and she never really like did the whole, push and blame on your father type thing, or, what I'm saying, she always allowed me to make my own choice, never said nothing bad about my father. Always, tried to have me in touch with him, on his birthdays or on our birthdays and Christmases and things of that nature. So she had a very big heart, saying a huge heart. And along with that, the support of my AAU coach, Larry Marshall, like he really got in there. Like he literally came and pulled me, out the streets at times. You know what I'm saying? Pulled up on courts or on the block where I'm hanging at, to pick me up for practice. You know what I'm saying? Or else I knew I wasn't going. And throughout that time, my whole focus was just, trying to get out. When I graduated high school, I had good grades, but that was around the time where, SAT was big, you know what I'm saying? So I was what we call a Prop 48, when I first graduated high school. And I had to go to junior college for a little while out in Kentucky, and then after a couple of years out in junior college, I got my stuff together. Then I ended up at Southern through a path of like that. But it was more so just really just trying to have a way out. Like I didn't understand like the importance of, being educated or anything like that. Like I was just like, I'm trying to survive. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like my mentality was like, I don't want to be dead by 18, or in jail. You know what I'm saying? And I knew if I didn't go to college or do something, I was going to end up that way. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what was happening around me. That's just like, that's just type of thing that was like when I was expelled from school, I got expelled by 10 of with 10 of my friends, and only 2 of us came back in school. You know what I'm saying? And the other 8, are struggling to this day. A couple of them are not around no more, and then a few of them continue to struggle to this day. So it was really a blessing, by God, because I really didn't learn or understand the importance of what I was doing or the opportunities that I had until, Mr. Marshall really sat me down and explained to me that, what I'm saying, I could change my life. I could help my family the way I want to help my family. I could, the big thing that he drilled into me was I could make my mom proud, you know what I'm saying? And things like that. So that's really like was more my motivation than anything. I wanted to keep a smile on my mother's face, and I never wanted to see her hurt. So that was really like my motivation with stuff.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for that trip down memory lane. As everyone can hear, all 3 of these gentlemen have powerful stories that reflect that they are more than an athlete, which is a great segue into our next set of questions. And we'll start back with you, Aaron, and then we'll go to Darren and Barry. Many of our current student athletes are fighting battles that coaches, faculty, and staff have no idea about, but it impacts their ability to perform in the classroom and on the court or on the field. You all have experienced some difficulties during college with coaches, faculty, and or staff. If you are comfortable sharing, would you mind talking a little bit about the struggles that you all experienced in college and how those experiences affected your relationship with your alma mater, SCSU? We'll start with you, Aaron.
Yes. While at Southern, it was very difficult. When my mother passed away, like I said, my sophomore year, and from that point on, I mean, before, we found out that she was diagnosed with cancer my 11th grade year in high school. So it was from 11th grade on, it was hyper anxiety for me. Every single day I was waking up scared. I would cry all the time. When she passed, I cried every single day in my basement. For hours on end, I did not get up and get dressed. My friends would come over and sit with me. I had some of my roommates actually come. I'll never forget that. They came all the way to Long Island, New York, and sat with me in my basement. So I'm pretty sure I had depression. I didn't go get professional help. How Black people are sometimes. Keep it all in house. We'll, no, we don't need to see anybody, kind of thing. But I probably needed to see somebody. So it was a challenge because there were a lot of things going on that I was dealing with in the family as well, trying to maintain my mother's household and trying to pay bills. I was going home every single weekend, checking up on the household. My sister was working jobs. We were trying to get money together to pay that mortgage. I started paying the mortgage when I was 19. So I had so many challenges, and I did not feel that I was able to even confide in with Arthur Joseph Leary, about those challenges. Because when I went to school, unlike other basketball players who are looking for that mentor, father figure type coach person, I wasn't looking for that, because I kind of had a sense or an understanding of who people were and who they weren't, and who they were not in my life. My mother was kind of she was a powerful woman who, if you were around her, she just had a particular energy about her. Her smile can light up a room, but if she's mad at you, you know you're about to be done in. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't want to be on that other side. You wanted to stay on the smile side, because she had the most beautiful smile, the most beautiful disposition, but she will knock your head off your shoulders. She would destroy you. So we had a healthy respect for her. So when she was gone, that was my foundation. That's who I looked to, right? I looked to her, my brother. I had other male mentors in my life. That's who I looked to. I didn't look to Art Leary for mentorship. He was unable to provide that mentorship. Now, me as a young Black boy, going into my manhood, who understood the complexity of America and this race problem, and the complexity that about how deeply pervasive racism was. I understood it on a level of almost like an organic level, and I didn't necessarily have the vocabulary to speak as adroitly about it as I do today. But I did have enough of vocabulary to really sense it, feel it, understand it. And I don't think, a lot of times coaches really don't have that lens. They lack a cultural responsiveness. They lack a cultural, they lack that cultural perspective, because they want to get something out of you, the product. For instance, I'll give you a short little story. My mother, so I was going back and forth, from Southern. Every Thursday I'm out, and then I'll come back Sunday night or Monday morning. I remember overstaying for the winter. For basketball players, you barely have a winter break. You go home for like 2 days, and then you turn right back around and come back because of the season. And I remember letting him know before I left that I had challenges with the house I was dealing with the bank in the house. And then I let him know during the break. And then I could not come back. I was still dealing with a lawyer, the bank, in the house, and my siblings and my mother's family, because we found out some people in that family never really accepted us as their family. When my mom died, she said when she was around, she never let anyone call us her adopted children ever. Or foster kids. She was like, those are my children, and she will fight you, you know what I mean, for disrespecting that. And so when she died, some people showed their true colors. So we were in this battle. I called and let him know, on his office phone. I called and let the assistant coach know. No one got back to me. It was almost like there was an excuse to do what it is they wanted to do. Because when I returned to school, maybe a day or two later than the date that they said come back, I went to the locker room, and my locker was cleaned out. And I was like, what is going on here? And I had no idea. I got like anxious. I went to Sully to see where, what's going on. And he said, Coach directed me to clean out your locker, And I was like, I didn't understand that at all. So I ran right up to his office, and I'm like, what's going on? I thought you quit. That's what Coach Leary said to me. I thought you quit. I said, Coach Leary, you do know my mother died, right? You do know that I'm dealing with all of these collections of issues. You did get the messages that I left for you in your office. I did call the assistant coach as well. What do you mean you thought I quit? So that's when I knew who I was dealing with. That's when I knew, like, Aaron, your intuition, right? Your foresight, what you thought about this man was really what it was. He had no idea or necessarily any empathy about the challenges that you were going through. And you had to, and then it kind of like, I started saying, Aaron, you got to be strategic about how you're going to deal with this man moving forward. So I thought that because there was a lack of connectivity culturally, there was a lack of connectivity in terms of the coaching staff. Even though he had Kendall Chambers did not have the power to be that mentor that he could have been, that maybe he wanted to be. So I felt like I was out there, I was on a limb by myself. I felt alone. If I didn't have cousins that lived around the street from Southern Connecticut, I don't know what I would have done, to be honest with you, because at least I could go around the corner from time to time and see them and hang out with them. So that was my experience. It was very, very difficult, but I had no expectation that it wasn't going to be, especially from him, that character. it was a flaw from the very beginning, but I kind of ignored my intuition because I committed and everything like that.
Well, thank you, Aaron, for that candid reflection. Darren, could you tell us a little bit about some of the challenges you experienced while you were in college, and how that has affected your relationship or feelings towards your alma mater, SCSU?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I struggle with is just from a financial standpoint. Well, one of them is that I remember, SCSU wasn't a scholarship school. And so I remember those times where if the payment didn't go through, or if my dad didn't have it on time, or you went through financial aid in that situation of being in a long line, and then if you didn't have the payment, that means I couldn't register for class, which put me behind, or I couldn't move in at the right time. Those things, which are probably still going on for most individuals today, was probably the hardest thing that I had to deal with. It was just most frustrating. And also other situations I dealt with is that I remember this one professor, right, in algebra class. And so other athletes was like, well, don't take this class, right? But it was the only class I could take. I had to take it, right? And I believe that she didn't really like football players. And so as we were sitting in class to do our work, and I remember going to her for extra help. I remember going for tutoring for extra help. And no matter what I do, I couldn't pass. And this was the first time ever in college I had failed a class. And it was the most frustrated, most angered I had ever been. In that year, I had to go to summer school because for football, you needed at least 12 credits, right, to be eligible for the season. And so I remember that I had to get that extra credit. So I had to spend that time at Southern during that summertime to get myself together, which I was able to pull my grade up, but I felt like I didn't have to be in that situation. And I felt like I didn't have anybody to talk to because of it.
Thank you for sharing that, Darren. And Barry, for you, what were some of the challenges you experienced? You shared some of the challenges you went through prior to getting to SCSU. What about while you were there, and how did that affect your relationship or feelings about the university?
Well, my experience at Southern was very different than both Aaron and Darren's. My experience was maybe it might have been the time, you know what I'm saying, but like it was very, very different. Like, I felt I did get that support, you know what I'm saying, from Kendall Chambers, who was like, like almost like my mentor, you know what I'm saying, like KC, like having my back. I think I also felt supported by Coach Leary as well. Coach Leary used to talk to my mother, you know what I'm saying, on the phone, and like the team, like our team at that time, like we were very supportive amongst each other as well. You know what I'm saying? Like Tim and Jermaine, Lloyd, Phil, all them dudes, we stuck together. You know what I'm saying? Like we always talked to each other. You know what I'm saying? Like even like TJ, even like that was TJ's freshman year. And like we stuck together. Like we ate together. We held each other down. Like we broke bread. You know what I'm saying? Like we really broke bread. And it was a time in which like it was the first time like I felt brotherhood. You know what I'm saying? Like away from home. You know what I'm saying? Like away from my own brothers, like my real brothers at home. You know what I'm saying? And that whole experience actually made it easy for me, because unlike Aaron and Darren, you know what I'm saying, like they were top chops. You know what I'm saying? Like I was a role player. I had to fit in, get in where I fit in. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, I wasn't, like a leading scorer or nothing like that. I was, an exciting, dunk here, dunk coming in or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, have my times where I come in and I'm coming in, I'm dunking on somebody or something like that. That's the main thing, that I got off with. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it was like a time where, you know, it was like we found ways just to kind of hold each other up. And maybe it was us as individuals, you know what I'm saying? Because I've heard stories, you know what I'm saying? I've heard other stories. And I'm just like, you know, like I was just like, wow, because like that's just not how we operated, you know, as a group. You know, I mean, if somebody needed something, we figure out how to get it to them. You know, it was situations where, you know, I was dealing with certain, you know, court cases back in Jersey, you know what I'm saying? And I had to leave practice and, you know, jump on a train, get back, you know, and then AC would come pick me up, get me back to school, you know, type stuff like that, you know, and coach wouldn't hold nothing against me because, you know, I was going back and forth in those situations at those times, you know what I'm saying? Because, you know, I was still, you know, caught up in certain things, you know what I mean, as I was trying to, you know, get myself together, you know, going to school, you know, and you know, so my experience was totally different from theirs, but it's something that I've heard before, you know, and it's something that, you know, universities like really need to pay attention to, especially when you talk about dealing with young Black athletes, you know, because there's certain things that we need as young men that we don't have, you know what I'm saying? Like I yearned for a father figure, you know what I'm saying? I yearned for guidance, things like that, you know, but, and it was like, sometimes that wasn't really communicated until like, you know, like I would act out in certain ways, you know what I'm saying? Like maybe you get into a fight in practice, or, you know what I'm saying? Like you spaz out on the bench, or you spaz out, you know, against another team or something like that. You know, it really had nothing to do with that. It had other things to do with what you feeling and stuff like that. Like, you know, everybody else's father is coming to the game, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, my dad is nowhere to be found. You know what I'm saying? It's like that used to tear me up, bro. Like real talk, like that used to tear me up. You know what I mean? And I used to struggle bad with that, you know? But, and then at the same time, like, you know what I'm saying? Like my mom was always there too. You know what I'm saying? My mom held me down, but like, she's my mother, but you still need that male guidance in your life as well. And then it's like when you think about it, you know, and you know, we talk about this a lot within the foundation between me, Dennis, and Alan. It's like, you got to really think about who's the males in the room. You know what I'm saying? Like when you go into a conversation, or not even a conversation, but when you go into a situation to where like you're being courted, like Aaron was saying, you're being courted and celebrated when you come on that visit. Everything seems great when you come on that visit. Everything is like, oh man, you know, your name in lights when you come on that visit, you know, and then first day of practice, it's like you amongst everybody else, you know, and then you got to figure out how you going to fit in with things. You know what I'm saying? Then you realize that, okay, well, wow, this cat might actually really be better than me. You know what I mean? Then it's like, you gotta really play your mind on that, you know? And it's like, how do you fit in with the situation? Like with us, we were winning, you know what I'm saying? We were winning. So like, am I gonna go to coach and be like, you know, well, I think I should get more minutes than Jermaine, you know what I'm saying? But whatever, and try to cause a rift between me and Tree, you know what I'm saying? Tree had a better jump shot than me, flat out, straight up. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just what it was. You know what I mean? I couldn't shoot for bricks, you know what I'm saying, at that time. You know what I'm saying? And it was like, that's just like, I don't know, but we talked amongst each other too, you know what I'm saying, as well, like as teammates. Like we talked amongst each other too. So that was kind of my experience. It was like more camaraderie, you know, and more support. It was definitely more support, maybe because we had a lot of parents involved, and like parents were around as well, and parents weren't letting things go left, you know what I mean, with their kids, you know, and even if you weren't their kid, they were treating you like you were their kid at that time.
I appreciate that, Barry. I appreciate that. My next question for all of you, you know, Barry mentioned Aaron and Darren, you all were stars on the team, and I'm sure all the SCSU followers know your names and know your numbers and have the memories of when you all were playing. But for all of you, even for you too, Barry, as a role player, we know that the dumb jock stereotype is attributed to student athletes in general, but it has a particular application or association with Black male student athletes. Can you all talk about what it was like being a Black male athlete on campus? And, you know, did you encounter that dumb jock stereotype? And what were your experiences like off the court, in the classroom, you know, in social settings? How did you all navigate that? We'll start with you, Aaron.
I don't think I encountered it overtly. I think it was kind of implicit in the way in which it came across. Sometimes they were very surprised at the way I wrote, you know. You know, it's just like, you know, like just the comments. Either they were surprised because a lot of young people just can't write, or I don't know. Again, you said I'm 6'7", now I'm 260. But at that time, 235, you know, on the team. So it was like, you wrote this paper kind of thing, like the way in which it was kind of written in some of the comments. It was just, but I don't think it was overt. I just used to do my thing and kind of keep it moving. My grades took and for the folks who are on, if there are any student athletes on, I like to keep it I'll keep it a stack. That's what my students say. I want to say that when my mom passed, my grades went like that, to where it was hard for me to even recapture a C+, B- on the way out overall. And I wanted to be candid about that, because I always feel that as an athlete, you want to demonstrate that you do have a brain. As a Black athlete, you want to demonstrate even more that you do have a brain, because the stereotype is even worse, not just about the dumb jock, but it's the dumb Black jock. Because that's all you can do is shoot that ball, or throw that ball, or carry that ball, or hit that ball, or kick that ball. So that really upset me. But I tell you, every time I left that school on the weekends to go home, or Thursdays to go home, I didn't care about the grades. There was no one. There was like one professor that really took a caring and an empathetic, real kind of like connection to me, Dr. Thompson, Michelle Thompson. I believe she's still there. History professor. The history of the Vietnam War era class that I took with her was one of the best classes that I've taken. I got a really good grade in that class. I was interested in it. But she was so nice and so empathetic and flexible. And she gave me time, and she tried to work with me at every turn. I can't say that about all the other professors. It was almost like I wasn't going through grieving death of my mom, the only mom that I ever knew. It wasn't an overt kind of like, you know, what are you dumb jocks going to do in here today kind of thing, but it was kind of like a surprise for certain things that I wrote. Then I felt when I graduated from Southern and I attended Old Westbury, and then it's 5 colleges, so I'm trying to figure it out. Stony Brook, and then St. Rose and St. John's. I was trying to prove at every degree that I was worthy to be there, which is another thing, almost like going on, like rewriting A- papers, like that guy. So much so that I'm trying to get my grade point average really way up there. Like the last 2 colleges I graduated from, I had a 3.98 and a 4.0. Because in my mind, it's, even as an adult, I'm still trying to prove to the folks that are watching and the folks that are grading that I'm good enough. So yeah, that was kind of my experience. It wasn't overt, but I thought about it all the time, about how I came across.
Thank you. Darren, what about you? Dumb jock stereotype, did you encounter it, or any other stereotypes while you were on campus?
So I didn't really encounter it personally, but it was just like, that's what the word was. And so I have an issue with this, especially coaching high school athletes. It's near and dear to me, this one particularly. And so I don't believe any athletes are dumb jocks. I believe athletes are highly intelligent, and you have to be able to process. One is you have to learn the plays, right? But then be able to process on the court or the field, wherever you are at a high level. And I could say this, for our team, I remember we were number 4 in the nation, right, in offense. And Coach Godek, I know he's on the call, he designed that offense. We were doing the no huddle before the no huddle. And, you know, he had code names of like, you know, Peyton Manning would say Omaha, Omaha. We would have Alabama, we would have Arizona, and I remember those calls, but you had to process that stuff. And so you as an athlete, football was pretty much like shapes, numbers. It was geometry. That's what it is, right? And taking different angles to get to the point of attack. And so how this affected me is because I kind of slid through the cracks a little bit, right? I wasn't the best writer and I wasn't the best reader, right? Average student, 2.7, 3.0, right, is what I kept my GPA at. But I did the bare minimum too. So part of that was on me, right? But I struggled. I struggled writing and I struggled reading until I was about 25, 26. And so for me, it gave me a lot of anxiety, which people may have known. Those that are close to me knew that, right? So I had a lot of anxiety when it came to writing. Being in professional settings, speaking, right? And I remember this one professor, once I finished my degree, I remember this one professor, and I was taking her marketing class, and she awarded me with the top male speaker in the class. That moment is when everything changed for me from an educational standpoint. And now I went home and I looked at myself, I was so proud of myself. And I looked at myself at that age and I was like, really? I'm smart. I'm really intelligent. And that point on became nothing but straight A's because now I applied myself because I had someone that had confidence in me at that particular moment. And so it shocked me, it changed my life, but that was the most meaningful. But other than that, I slid through the cracks before that.
Thank you, Darren. What about you, Barry?
I didn't really start to understand like the importance of education until I went to like junior college and all that stuff like that. So by the time I got to Southern, my whole attitude about my education kind of changed. You know what I'm saying? And I kind of like had it in the back of my mind, like Aaron was saying, like it was always in the back of my mind. Like I know I'm being judged. I know they're waiting for me to do the stumbling classroom, So I found refuge in the library. You know what I'm saying? Like I would go to class, and then after class, I would go right to the library. Get all my work done, start doing my work, spend extra time studying and writing and things of that nature. Because I always had to make sure my gun was loaded. You know what I'm saying? So like when it came time, I was raising my hand. You know what I'm saying? Like I wanted to turn heads, in classes. And I did that. Like, I didn't want to have, like, I got upset when I got like C's or something like that. You know what I'm saying? And, I really pushed myself when it came to my academics and things of that nature with school. And, I found those ways to get that, extra help that they hide from us. At certain times, I found those writing labs when those writing labs were going on. I found those math groups that were going on with the extra studies and things of that nature, because it wasn't going to be me. Like that was the thing. Like I always kept that in the back of my head. Like, I know, okay, they see, oh, tall black man, he got to be a basketball player, can't do nothing else. You know what I'm saying? Ball is all you can do type stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I was geared up for that. I was really geared up for that. And I took that challenge on like head on, and always made sure, like I said, always made sure I kept my guns loaded. I stayed in the library, studied, when we went on away trips and stuff like that, make sure I had my notes and stuff in hand, never tried to use anything as an excuse, even though like, and that's part of the setup. Again, like if there's athletes on this call who are inspiring to go to college, like that's part of the setup, and you gotta really read in between the lines when a professor says to you, oh, I know you got a game away trip this weekend, so if you get it to me a little late, that's okay. Nah, because them points are still gonna come off. You know what I'm saying? It's still gonna be graded a little lower. You know what I'm saying? Be on time with everything. Don't fall into that, oh, well, this teacher got me, that teacher got me. I've seen people lose scholarships like that. I've seen people go on away trips, and then you come back from an away trip, next thing you know, you're on the bus home because you didn't complete that project. and the teacher's saying, well, he also been a little late, and that's when everything else start coming up that they kind of let you slide on. You know what I mean? Like that's not the thing. That's not the thing. Nobody needs to let you slide. That's not somebody supporting you. Somebody is not supporting you when they let you slide. I talk about that in my book too. As educators, they know that there is no slide. You know what I'm saying? So if an educator is telling you, well, I'm gonna let you slide, I'm gonna give you that cushion, that's a setup. And you gotta be ready for that. You gotta take initiative to that. And I preach the same thing to my daughter, who actually attends Southern now and is gonna be graduating in May. I say, listen, I told her from day one, I said, listen, you get on campus, you set up a routine for yourself. After class, you go to the library. After class, and then you finish all your studies in the library, then you go back to the dorm and you relax and you get to your friends. And then what'll happen is that you'll find certain things won't even come your way because people already know what you're doing. People are like, oh, well, no, we can't bring it to B, or we can't bring it to Lex like that because he in the library at this time. So we got to wait till after. So you're going to miss it. You might miss out on some things, but those are the things that you need to miss out on so you can stay focused.
Great. No, this is great. I see the questions already coming in the chat. So we're going to move a little bit along here so that we finish our questions and we give everyone opportunity. You all are giving some jewels to the audience, and they're very excited. So before we get to life after sports, I just want to ask one question. For many young men, coaches are mentors, role models, and in some cases, father figures. Many of them, when they're recruiting, and Aaron touched on this a little bit earlier, in the recruitment process, they tell you all whatever you want to hear. You're going to be the star player. You don't have to worry about it. Can you all tell us, like, after you arrived on campus, kind of a little bit about your recruitment process after you arrived? How was that transition in college? So want to hear a little bit about that. If you all can keep the remarks brief, and then we'll ask a final question about life after sports, and then we'll open it up to the audience for Q&A. So we'll start with you, Aaron, the recruitment process to the college experience.
I was, excuse me, I was going to a team that was a winning team at that point. So I understood that I needed to kind of fall back. I wasn't trying to be a star. As a matter of fact, I used to always try to be incognito, or as I say, incognito, and I couldn't be because I was so big. So when you dunk on somebody or you block a shot in a real crazy way, people are like, yo, who's that? So I try to stay low key because I understood that there was already a dynamic set up on the team. Until I started to kind of be integrated a little bit more. So when they recruited me, I saw that they had this established system, and they did their normal recruiting things. And when I got to campus, in my mind, I dampened my expectations because I didn't want to be gassed by the lights. I don't want to be gassed and juiced by the lights. I had to feel the whole situation out. So when I was going to be playing against somebody that was my size, big dude, whatever, power forward, center, I had to fill that out. And then I had to fill out how I was going to make my mark on that team so that I can start getting some more time. So I didn't have a really hard transition from being a star at my high school to kind of coming off the bench here. Because again, my life wasn't about basketball. I started playing basketball in 10th grade. I wanted to be an attorney or a teacher forever. And I believe that's why I was such a good defensive player, because I wanted to be defending people. That's my personality. I always wanted to be the last line, someone you could depend on. So my transition from star player to role player before I became, more of a star player a little bit later on, it was kind of seamless and simple. I had no real issues in that way.
Thank you, Aaron. What about you, Dan?
Yes. So in high school, my junior year in high school, I played defensive back, and I had tied a record for 8 interceptions. And my film was being sent around, and so I was being recruited by Rutgers, Iowa, Syracuse, that level. But my senior year, I performed more at the running back level more than I did DB. And I remember I had a 2.7 GPA, and I needed an 820. I could only get an 810 on my SAT. right? And I took the test over and over. And I took it about 5 or 6 times and still couldn't get it. All I was getting to was a 810. So that didn't qualify me to receive the scholarship from Division I. And so even at Division II, I think I was still a partial qualifier at that time. All right. And so there was someone that went to Syracuse that called down to Southern Connecticut. And I remember Coach Steiner coming or giving me a call and then going on a recruiting visit. And at that time, I just wanted to be loved at that time, right? Because football is the game I loved at, at that particular time. So I just wanted someone to show me some love. And I went and I felt good at the moment. And I said, okay, this is just going to be my home, right? I was talking between them and the University of New Haven. And I said, this is going to be my home. And I remember starting off as a freshman and back behind Rashawn Dumas and all the other backs, because it was a whole good triage of backs. But I remember just being in that line and just patiently waiting, right? And watching. For me, I was an individual that I would watch you. I had to watch what moves you made and how hard you worked, because I knew I had to outwork you to get to the top. And so always good, healthy competition between our backs. And I just patiently waited. And so as the time came, guys fell off, whether they may have got cut or dismissed from the team or whatever the situation was, I was able to move in that position and then take full advantage of that position. And so I think I've enjoyed that journey and just appreciative of the people around me that supported me as I patiently and stayed humbly waiting until I was able to get that opportunity.
Great. Well, thank you, Darren. What about you, Barry? How about your transition? I know you mentioned you went from high school to JUCO, then to SCSU. How was that recruitment process for you? And then once you were on campus, how was that transition for you?
It was very like it was a challenging process in the beginning, because like we weren't winning at that time. Like we just started winning that 96, 97 year. You know what I'm saying? That was like the time when we were first nationally ranked and everything like that. So it was like, I got the usual, you could be a difference maker, that type stuff and everything like that. So in the beginning, like my psyche was very high, you know what I'm saying? But then when, things kind of went left a little bit, you know what I'm saying? And I wasn't the starter that they told me I was going to be when I first came in there. Then I had to really, decide to myself, like, like what's important to me, you know what I'm saying? Like, and at every level until I got to Southern, I had been in winning situations. In high school, we was winning in high school. Junior college, we was winning in junior college. You know what I'm saying? So I'm used to being in a winning culture, but I was within the top 5 of the winning culture though. So this time it was a different type of challenge, and it was like, now I have to understand, like, humble myself a little bit and understand how my abilities and how the things that I can do can impact and help the team, and where I fit in with that, so I had to really, like, get my mind right, in a sense of, okay, am I gonna be the bickering player, or am I gonna play hard and impact when I can impact and always stay ready? You know what I'm saying? So, and I took that route because I liked winning, you know what I'm saying? I liked the people I was playing with, and like, and I was honest with myself too. Like I said before, hands down, Jermaine was just hands down better than me. You know what I'm saying? At that time, like I couldn't do nothing about that. You know what I'm saying? I was never a good jump shooter coming out of high school. You know what I'm saying? I could fly though and bang on you. You know what I'm saying? But you got to do more than that. At times. You know what I'm saying? And so it was more so like just like a gut check with myself. And it's interesting because, like, nowadays you hear a lot of young players saying, I want to go to the league and all that stuff like that and everything, and you You really have to understand as a student athlete. First of all, you got to understand the word student athlete, all right? And it's being a student to get you the privilege of being an athlete first. You know what I'm saying? And those are the things that we kind of get lost in the sauce on. But then when you start talking about, you know, making it being professional and all that stuff like that, a colleague of mine in school, Mr. Butchko, a colleague of mine in school told me, gave me a great visual that I would love to share. You know, he said, imagine Giant Stadium filled, 50,000 people. You zoom in on one person of those 50,000 people. That one person is the one person who has the possibility of making it pro. That one person, the possibility, nothing guaranteed, but the possibility of going pro. And that's what young athletes, especially young Black athletes, you really have to understand that, because to get caught up in the hoop dream, and you never know, you might get injured, somebody might come in and be better than you, like in my situation, you know what I'm saying? And then you see what happens. Like we all know friends like that who played with us and they did the school hopping thing. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna try to find, I'm gonna go here. I don't get no time here. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna go here. Next thing you know, you hopping around for 5 years and you've accomplished nothing. Educationally, you've accomplished nothing. You haven't gotten close to that ticket that Aaron is talking about, to that receipt. You haven't gotten close to that receipt because you've been hopping around chasing this dream. And then next thing you know, you run out of your eligibility. And you realize that you lost your value. Without your eligibility, you have no value. And that's a scary thing. That could be a scary thing, you know? So it's like, you know, we really have to pay attention to that. Really have to pay attention to that. And that's something that coaches, even in the recruiting process, they should talk about it more. They should talk about that more. Be a little bit more upfront and honest, you know, with kids when you're recruiting. You know, unless you like the John Calipari or something, you know, and you go into Kentucky and see, you know, you playing for that one and done. Otherwise, and because even that's not guaranteed.
Absolutely, absolutely. You all are dropping knowledge tonight. As you all can see, this is why we had this outstanding panel. We've got one more question, gentlemen, because once again, the chat is hopping and people want to ask questions. The final question has to do with life after sport. You all have talked about your upbringing. You all talked about how much sport played a pivotal role in your identity at different junctures of your life. I know Aaron mentioned how it was more in 10th grade and through college, whereas for Barry, you and Darren, it was more throughout your entire lives. But let's talk about that transition after sport. Can you all talk about, did you experience a post-athletic career identity crisis, and how have you been able to adjust and transition? Because all of you are very successful as adults, but we know that many athletes, particularly Black male former athletes, don't always make that transition as smoothly as you all did. So can you all share a little bit about that transition, post-athletic career? We'll start with Aaron, then we'll go with Darren and Barry, and after those remarks, we'll open it up to the chat for questions from the audience.
I think it becomes important for young athletes, especially athletes of color, to recognize the total circumstance. You're going into a college situation for a purpose. It's a means to an end for you, in terms of your end is to get that degree to give you opportunities, right? That's really what it is. And a lot of times, like Barry was talking about the hoop dream, sometimes that can control everything about what a student athlete is, even though the title is student athlete, not athlete student, right? Student comes first. So you have a situation to where if there is not a recognition of your purpose there, and if you have not been centered in your life to have purpose beyond that game, if you allow for folks to characterize you through that game, that's the problem anyway. As you are moving through this either basketball or football or baseball, as you're moving through these sports and people give you more and more adulation and you're getting more accolades, you have to be centered enough to know that this doesn't characterize me. I can decouple myself, my humanity, my worth from this sport that people are patting me on the back about every 2 days, or I used to get a write-up in New York Newsday like every other day, you know? And if you were not balanced, you really think you were somebody. And all I used to say to myself when I was a younger man, it was like, all I need to do is bust my kneecap and nobody cares. I was the guy who used to. Remember the guy who used to get all of those triple doubles? Remember the guy who used to jump so high that his hand was over the white box on the basketball hoop? Remember that guy who used to? You know, like I started to kind of recognize that a lot earlier than some athletes do. And when I got into Southern Connecticut, I remember a conversation that I had with TJ Tromboli in the locker room. I remember I came in my freshman year, and TJ Tromboli was lights out. He averaged a lot of points, and they were in the locker room talking about the season. We were going into the postseason, and he started really talking slick. They started playing the dozens. And at that time, I was very, very quiet. I was always quiet. I didn't do too much, you know what I mean, in terms of talking crazy. And I remember he came for me. And I remember TJ Tromboli, and he had no idea about the fire that was coming, but he came for me and he was like, so Aaron, how many points did you average this year? And I just I just kind of did one of these moves. I'm like, he really has no idea. And I said, you know, TJ, I really I didn't score a lot of points. I didn't know I was required to do so. This is a team that's already set up. I'm just getting here. I'm a freshman. I didn't do a lot. I said, but I tell you one thing. I said, I can continue to score 2 points, 3 points, 1 point, whatever. I said, the thing that's going for me is that I'm tall and I'm strong and I'm fast. And I have an upside. I said, you're short and you're slow. You can't get your own shot. And this is it for you. I said, this is the last go round for you in this thing that we call basketball. I said, so enjoy it while it's lasting, because this is it. And then everybody in the locker room was like, damn, everybody kind of had a collective, like, I can't. And that was, to me, I had to kind of, from that moment on, those was one of the moments where I had to fall back. And I had to kind of really say to myself, like, yo, basketball is really a lot of these people's lives. It is their identity. They really cannot peel themselves away from the identity. I could have not played basketball and still been comfortable in me because of the life goals that I had and because of what I wanted to do. So student athletes, if you are watching this video, you have to ask yourself the question, who are you beyond that sport? What do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish beyond that sport? All you need is an injury to end that dream, that sports dream, that ball dream, that hoop dream. So you have to ask yourself, what is my value beyond this sport that I play? Beyond how I've been commodified by other people. People have put a price tag on me as if I'm a product. Who am I? Where's my humanity? Where does my humanity lie? Where is my value to my family, my community? What do I want to go away with this experience? What do I want to do? What do I want to take out of this experience while I'm in college? Where do I want to go? So that was kind of like it was in my mind for a long time about, Aaron, you are so much bigger than this. As a matter of fact, people see me to this day. I'm 40 years old. I'll be 41 this year. So even if I played basketball, I would have retired a couple of years ago, unless you're LeBron James and you can maintain that kind of high level playing forever. I had people walk up to me, yo, you still playing ball, Aaron? I'm like, you know how old I am? No, of course I'm not playing ball. And it's just because of the way I look. I'm still in shape and I'm tall. But that's what they characterize me as for 20 plus years. Not that I've been to multiple universities and graduated and I'm doing work in DEI and I'm a DEI professional. So that's what that's what it is for me. I have decoupled myself a long time ago. Even before I graduated, I took an extra semester at Southern Connecticut. And I kind of just started walking away from the basketball world at that point. I had opportunities to play afterwards as well. But after I got hurt in Mexico, I just said, let me hang these shoes up. I walked away from basketball. Basketball didn't walk away from me.
Well, thank you, Aaron. Darren and Barry, if you all can just give us a brief description of your post-athletic career transition process, and then we'll open it up to the audience for questions from the chat.
Okay, I'll try to be as brief as possible. I know everyone has to go. Yeah, so finishing up my college career, I entered the NFL draft, and this was a defining moment in my life. Right, this is what actually believe it catapulted me into the next level. So I remember training, doing all those things, and trying to enter the draft. And remember draft day. I'm trying to give you the short version. The draft day, not being selected or not having my name called on the day of the draft, and not even after the free agency, that time period or the mini camp. I went into I would say a small bit of depression, where I was upset, I was angry, I shut down. And if anybody knows me closely, they know that I'm like an extrovert when I'm out in public, but I'm an introvert when I'm back in my shell and at home. And so I remember staying in my room for about 2 weeks, shut down, and didn't know how to handle it, didn't know how to process it, because this is something I dreamt about all my life. And I was so close to this step, right? It was like I had one foot in, I just had to get the other one in. And no one wanted to give me that opportunity. No one believed in me enough to give me that opportunity. And so I went through a little bit of depression at that time. Again, I shut down, but I talked to myself, and it was just self-motivation, right? My dad, when I was younger, always told me to be mentally and physically strong. He put that in subconsciously in my ear. I didn't know what he was doing when I was young. I didn't know. He did that to me and my brothers. Be physically and mentally strong. So I remember that, and I had to self-motivate myself to come out of that, like, this is not me. This has never been me, right? And we're not going to continue this way. And I was able to find my way through this and now educate myself at a higher level, right? And become much more value of me as a person, right? And my character. And I appreciate my dad for that, because if he didn't do that at a young age, I don't know what would have happened. And so if any athletes are on this call, you need a plan. You need a plan, right? That's the one thing I'm going to say. You need to put a plan together, because it only takes a second, not even a tenth of a second, for an injury or anything to happen, right? And then your whole life would change in a matter of seconds. And so there's more value to you as a person besides sports. And I need you guys to understand that.
Wow. Great stuff, gentlemen. Great stuff. Barry, take us home with this one. And then I'll have the question that's already been put in the chat. I'll ask that to you all here in a second.
Definitely. I kind of, when my career started winding down, I kind of fell into the cliche of things, with, especially us young Black athletes, so I turned to music, so I go and, I'm pursuing a rap career, you know what I'm saying? At the time of my last year or so, in Southern or whatever, just so happened that I had a member of my team, his name was Lorenzo, and his older brother had an entertainment company. It was Silk Dawn Entertainment. And Lorenzo took some of my demos home that me and my man Ron Stu was doing at the studio around the corner. And then next thing you know, his older brother was like, you got something type deal. So I'm like, oh, okay. You know what I'm saying? So, I start, trying to do my rap thing or whatever, right after I graduated and finished up school and everything. I was in a couple of videos, I'm in the Rough Rider Ride or Die video with Eve, and right after Eve does her part, when you got Styles P and them on the boat. I'm in the Sporty Thieves video, you know what I'm saying? I have my little cameos and all that, did a couple shows with Kid Capri and, K Slay and all that stuff like that. But like on the apex of it, you know what I'm saying? Like that was like, that wasn't it. You know what I'm saying? Like that really wasn't it. Like Darren said, you know what I'm saying? Like you need to have a plan, because our plan always seems to be, you gotta maintain some type of level of stardom, or you gotta be some type of glowing something. You know what I mean? Or you got to be the thing that's talked about. Or if you're say educated and average or productive, that's not good enough. You know what I'm saying? Like we got to be overbearing with certain things, you know? And we had a small little deal on the table, you know, and it kind of fell through. And at that time, like, you know, I had my daughter at that time, and you know, Ron was able to continue on, you know, with the music and everything like that. And currently, you know, Ron is doing very well in music. He's a VP of Warner Records. You know what I'm saying? So, but as for me, with the whole music thing, you know, I had to take care of my daughter. And I never forget it, man. I never forget it. The day that the situation with the deal fell through, and I'm sitting at home alone with my daughter was very, very young at that time. You know what I'm saying? Like she was like maybe say 12, like 10, 11 months, something like that. And I never forget, I'm sitting on the front porch with her, and I'm crying, and I'm looking at her as I'm crying. And I'm saying, I promise you I'm gonna take care of you. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I need to figure it out. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really gotta figure it out. This, you know what I'm saying? This music thing is not what I thought it was gonna be. You know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna take care of you. You know what I'm saying? I promise you. I'm telling this to her at 11 months, you know? So like Aaron was saying earlier, and like Darren said before, like, it is very important. We can't get caught up. You know what I'm saying? Like, just because you do a track in the basement and your boys is like, oh, that's fire, that don't mean next week you gonna be on top 20. You know, it takes years to break into the music game. And then when you break in, if you get into that, the money is really not what it is. You know what I'm saying? The money is really not what it is when you look at how things are broken down. You know what I'm saying? So you can't get lost in the sauce with that neither. You have to understand reality. You got to understand your value. You got to understand how to build your value and make yourself more than what you think you are. And that's the question. Like, you go back to what Aaron said before. Who are you? You really have to understand who you are as a young Black athlete in this world, because you can get lost in the sauce out here and be caught up and be really, really caught up.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, the chat is jumping, gentlemen. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to, since there are at least, I see 4 questions, I'm just going to direct each question to one of you instead of everybody answering, if that's okay, just based on what you all have shared. And hopefully everyone who's here today, if you need to follow up with our outstanding panelists, we'll make sure that there's a way you can follow up with them. But I'll ask this one to you, Darren, being our football star on the panel. Can you speak about the lack of representation among coaches of color in sports, especially the NFL? Dr. Grace Cooper says this is not about Brian Flores' racism case, but just about your experiences, coaches of color in sport, the underrepresentation of them.
Yeah, I think it's something that we always knew, right? It's right in front of our face. I mean, don't make it more to what it is. I mean, not saying don't make it more to what it is, but that's it. That's exactly it. It's so I'll give you an example, right? I was the head coach of high school football in Newark, New Jersey, right? And so I remember breaking into that barrier, right, and coaching and going to the first meeting. And I remember I walked in that room. It may have been maybe 10 Black coaches out of the 100 coaches that were there. And I looked at myself and I was like, wow, this is crazy. And I said to myself, I said, wow, do they not want us here? Do we not belong here? And so I said to myself, I said, you know what? I got to get these kids, whatever scholarships or whatever they need to do. I'm going to go here every single time they have a meeting. I'm going to sit right in the front. You're going to know my name. You're going to know who I am. And I'm going to bug you. And I'm going to get some answers. And you're going to help me. And so all this is saying is that we already know what it is. And so it is frustrating. It is angry. But we have to continue to fight, right? We have to continue. To be honest with you, I tell you, be honest, we need to make our own league. We need to make our own. That's what we need to do. We need to have our own owners. We need to create our own league, because we're trying to find a way. We're trying to find a space, all right? And they may not want us there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Darren. Great answer. Great answer. The next question, I'll go to you, Aaron. Steve Wilson says, SCSU is in a unique place right now. The current president, President Joe, has created a social justice, anti-racist vision for the campus. How can you, as a successful former athlete with an inspiring story, make an impact on SCSU's campus to help with this vision?
So I think, you know, there are a couple of ways in which we could do this. Like I'm also a DEI professional. So I do consulting for businesses and school systems. I do trainings and presentations and things of that nature. So I know I can speak to professionals, but I also can speak to our kids. I can speak to I can talk to them. I'm from where they're from. I'm not from Oshkosh. I'm not, I have had their experiences. I think what we need to do, however, is make sure that when we're establishing a vision for anti-racism, you have to have the people in the room that experienced it or experience it, right? They still experience it. We have to have the people in the room that actually know what it is, so that when you're creating whatever mission you have that you want to come into fruition, that we have the right things in mind as we move forward. Because a lot of DEI, DEI is very popular right now. Everybody's diversity, equity, and inclusion. Everybody's saying it because I post George Floyd. But sometimes checking that box without really, really understanding what's in that box is problematic. We have DEI professionals where, white women are leading the charge in it. It's almost like affirmative action. The person who benefits most with the affirmative action programs are white women. And so when does our voice get heard authentically? I'm glad they're opening up the conversation, but it just has to be authentic. Invite me back. I'll speak to whoever you want to speak to. I'll mentor whoever you want me to mentor. I'll connect them to different networks outside of Southern Connecticut. But I'm only a guy, right? So all hands need to be on deck. We have to look at our coaches. We have to look at the way in which we hire. We have to look at the empathy or lack of empathy that exists throughout the institution. So we're talking about program, we're talking about systems. We're talking about really taking an honest inventory of what that school is offering in terms of trying to be more inclusive. I felt locked out when I was there. I did not feel supported. And we're talking about mental health professionals, people who are suffering and who are having the issues that they're having while they're at that school. Somebody has to be there to kind of recognize it. Even if they don't have the strength to speak out or cry out, somebody's got to be able to rope them in and say, hey, come holler at me. I need you to make an appointment to come see me, or I'm going to make an appointment. I'm going to have you come see me. I'll do that legwork kind of thing. We have to have people that can understand the signs, of depression or whatever have you. So it's an institutional approach. It can't just be, successful people that have moved on. But that is a part of the answer, Stephen. Like, we all have to be able to come back. We all have to be able to give back, but it has to be done in a way that's going to be fruitful. It has to be meaningful, and it has to have purpose. We can't just all come back and say, hey, I'm the tall black guy who used to be pretty good in basketball, but I'm kind of successful now. Let me talk to you. Let me holler at you. It got to be something more, and it has to be ongoing.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Seems like we got two more questions. I'm going to ask this one to you, Barry, and then I'll ask the final question from Charles Goodwin to everyone. But for you, Barry, John Davis says, can you speak about how mental health services would have helped you as a student athlete, and what it would take for male student athletes to seek help when in need?
I think, that's a great question, because that kind of piggybacks off of what Aaron was saying. I think that mental health programs, some type of support in that type of way would have been super excellent. I think it would have helped me definitely with a lot of my anger issues. You know what I'm saying? I used to have little blackouts every now and then on campus, and get physically violent. You know what I'm saying? And you know, like my teammates would have to like, you know, make sure I was outside or something like that. Then, you know, I come to and I'm like, oh, why am I out here type stuff? You know what I'm saying? Like Aaron said, the key thing is like, you got to have people who can identify what's going on and be able to touch that soul of that person. Like I like Kendall and coaching them, they were comforting. Listen to the words I'm using. They were comforting, but they couldn't touch that soul that understood that young Black boy who was crying inside, missing his daddy. You know what I'm saying? They were comforting, but they could not touch that soul of that young Black boy who never understood why he never went to a father-son basketball game, why his dad was never in the stands, that type stuff. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, so like those are very, very essential things that you got to learn how to be able to come to fruition with, because like they can pop up on you at any time in life, you know, and things like, you know, mental health support would have been huge, just to have a group to go to and express yourself. You know, I was a child that my father left, you know, at a young age. If you just had a group like that, like people, like, you know, people going through things like that, you know, I turned all my frustration and anger to athletics, you know, so I took every piece of frustration that I had up in me and put it out on the court, you know. So whenever I did anything on the court, it was about letting out that aggression. You know, I used to always say, I can't wait to go to practice and dunk on somebody today. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was my thing. I need to get that out of my system. And then it was like, you know, almost to a odd mentality. Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, if somebody try to block it, I'm gonna break their arm and leave their arm in the rim. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that was my mentality. You know what I'm saying? Like almost to a sickening point. You know what I mean? And then it's like, you know, the protective nature. You know, I always feeling I had to protect my brothers on the team. Like, so anything go off, I'm the first one to try and pop off. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm protecting everybody. You know what I'm saying? Because they got me, you know, but I had to understand, I had to channel that anger. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't know how to channel it then. I know I understand it now. But if I'd have had that support then, that would have kept me out of a lot of trouble. That would have kept me out straight like that. That would have kept me out of a lot of trouble in my life.
This is great, gentlemen. This is great. This last question from Charles Goodwin, class of 1984. I think this is a great question for all of you to answer. So after all is said and done, through all the experiences, how do you feel today? Would you have done anything differently? And we'll start with Aaron, go to Darren, and then end with Barry.
It's interesting because when you start thinking in kind of hindsight, there's a lot of things that you could have in your mind thought that you could have done differently, but had you made any different decisions, your world could be very different today. You know, I had a girlfriend at the time there at Southern Connecticut, and you know, kind of learning her and learning relationships while I'm trying to juggle all these emotions and stuff like that. That taught me some things. So it's like I wished I didn't, you know, I was very pessimistic by nature. You know, foster care does a number on you. I was in foster care in the 1980s in New York State, and if anyone knows about foster care in New York State in the 1980s, you know, it was hell. And, you know, in order for many to make it out unscathed, that was kind of like slim to none. We all were touched by something. And a lot of the percentages were like a lot of people were in prison, dropouts, drug addicts, that sort of thing. So, you know, that my siblings and I, we struggled, you know, the abuses that happened to us. I wouldn't wish on anybody. And so when you have those things and you're pessimistic and you don't really trust people and you go to this place, you're very guarded. I was very guarded, which really cut my relationships down. I was nice, I was cool, I was always cool, but I was never really overtly friendly. I think people thought I was a little off. Like, I think people were a little unnerved by me because I didn't do a whole bunch of cheese and smiling. I didn't do a whole bunch of talking. If you engage me in something I was interested in, I'll talk about it. And you'd be like, oh, I didn't know he was a thinker. I didn't know he thought that way. So in terms of changing things, I wished I didn't I didn't open up my heart just a little bit to trust that this institution would be a little bit more empathetic towards me when my mom died. I thought I was gonna have a little bit more support. And then when I got my kind of like, when the truth of the matter came kind of like into my brain, I was just like, damn, I don't know why I was thinking that I was gonna be helped. You know what I mean? So I really wouldn't change anything. It's a part of my journey. You know what I mean?
Thank you. Darren.
Yeah, I have to second that as well too. I wouldn't change a thing. I think God set it up for me to go through those particular struggles to get to the man I am today. And I enjoyed all of those different experiences, whether it was a struggle, whether it was a great part of my time or my life. And so I appreciate that. I appreciate the people I met along the way, especially at SCSU. I still have a lot of friends. I still have a lot of relationships. And those things, man, you can reach out to somebody and just have multiple connections to different things. And so God had that plan for me, and I know that was intentional. And so I definitely appreciate it. So I wouldn't change a thing.
Right. What about you, Barry?
I would definitely have to follow my brothers up on that, you know what I'm saying, and say that I wouldn't change a thing neither. I definitely think that, God had a mission for me, in that process, because the things that I went through are the things that I help my young boys I work with now through. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can identify when they're struggling with these certain things. You know what I'm saying? I can support them when they're dealing with these certain family dynamics and things like that. I can have intense conversations with their mother or their father and let them know, like, look, this is what you need to do. No disrespect, to that level. You know what I'm saying? I can have hard conversations with them and let them know, look, I've been there. You know what I'm saying? I understand what you're talking about. I've been there. I've been in your shoes. You know what I mean? You don't want to keep pushing that envelope, because on the other side of that, it's not going to be a great thing like you think it's going to be, So, I wouldn't change a thing. You know what I'm saying? I think God has blessed me and blessed my other brothers on this panel, so we can continue to give back. Like Aaron said before, we can give back in a way that's fruitful, that's intentional, and that's educational, and that impacts our young Black men to make them more powerful as we go through things.
I love that word and appreciate that word intentional that you used. Intentionality is so important, systemically, programmatically, and intentionally.
All I can say is, wow, gentlemen, wow, wow, wow. From the comments in the chat, you all have said some moving words, inspirational, motivating, insightful, provided everyone with an insight into the lived experiences of a Black male former athlete, your intersecting identities, the different sources of your strength, your resilience, and the importance of paying it forward and giving it back to the next generation. So it was an honor and a privilege to listen and learn, and even in preparation for this event, to get to know you brothers. I certainly look forward to future events with you all. I want to thank the Office of Alumni Relations again and SCSU for putting together this wonderful panel. It says a lot about where the university is right now to have this type of panel, to bring back illustrious alumni who are doing impactful things in their communities and with their families, and for you to honor the contributions that they have made to the SCSU legacy. So we want to thank all of you for being here tonight, and I will pass it back over to Greg for concluding remarks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Cooper. Wow, what an amazing conversation. There's so much to unpack, but I just want to extend my deepest thanks to our panelists and my friends. These are brothers, Aaron, Darren, and Barry. Thank you for your candor, your transparency, and your vulnerability. These are obviously difficult conversations, and maybe the key to giving a person the courage to speak up, or a coach or mentor or educator the tools that they need to be a resource for the student athletes that they've pledged to support and develop. I also want to thank our integrated marketing and communications team for the beautiful promotional materials. They always do really great work and truly complement the programs we put on. But lastly, I want to thank all of you for taking the time after work or other things you had going on today to be a part of this discussion. And we hope that you continue on this journey with us. This is the first step towards building something impactful, intentional, and sustainable for our student athletes and the practitioners who serve them, not only at Southern, but at all schools and organizations across the country at all levels. Stay tuned for the next installment. Obviously, based upon all of the sub-conversation and context of this discussion, there's a lot to unpack, and this is going to be a series of discussions that extend into 2023, and then obviously beyond, when we're able to meet in person and the landscape is safer for us to meet in person and have small group discussions with our athletes. Stay tuned for the next installment. We have some upcoming events as well, which can be found on the Southern homepage calendar under the Alumni tab. Quick heads up, homecoming is Saturday, October 15th. So put that on your calendars. We had a wonderful homecoming this past October, had over 3,000 alumni, family members, and individuals come back to campus, and really hope to see some of you in person. But thanks again. And again, Dr. Cooper, you did a phenomenal job moderating, and we appreciate you being a part of this journey with us. So everyone have a wonderful night. And this was recorded, so we will be doing an encore presentation on Facebook Live in a couple of weeks so that you can all share with your students as well as other individuals who may benefit from this conversation tonight. So good night, gentlemen, and thank you all so much.
Peace.
Have a good night.